I was so excited to get my shipment from Last Bottle Wines in the mail the other day, full of incredible red wines, all from Napa Valley. I love wine tasting, so having this to my door couldn't be happier. Also, couldn't be more excited that today's episode is brought to you by Last Bottle Wines. If you don't know already, they're a Napa-based online wine shop with a twist. They offer just one handpicked wine per day until it sells out, and they're always at incredible prices. We're talking 30 to 70% off retail. And the best part is that there's no subscriptions, no fees, and no minimum purchase. And I could not be more excited to bring this offer right now because they're having a marathon sale, which is coming up March 28th and 29th. Even better, we're offering Dateable listeners 10% off your first order with code DATEABLE. So if you are a wine lover like me, this is a great time to join. And did I mention that shipping is 100% free? So what are you waiting for? Mark your calendar for March 28th and 29th, or get on it earlier if you want. You can sign up at lastbottlewines.com and use code DATEABLE and find out why Last Bottle is the most fun way to discover and buy amazing wine. We are so thrilled to be partnering with Hinge. Hinge is the dating app designed to be deleted. As you all know, I'm a huge Hinge advocate as I met my partner of almost 3 years on the app. Even before meeting him, Hinge was always my go-to app because I met more relationship-minded people here and had some great dates. Clearly, I haven't been on the app for a little while, but I re-downloaded it to check out some of the new features. One that stood out to me was the voice prompt, my best friend's take on why you should date me, where your friend can hype you up. Not only does this make the profile creation less daunting, but it's not always easy to see your own green flags. So to test it out, I asked Yue some fun prompts to get her take on what I could put if I was dating again. So the first one, how long have we known each other? What was your first impression of me and how has that changed?
Julie and I have known each other for almost 10 years. My first impression of Julie was that she's very social, but I've learned that she has a lot more depth to her beyond the social butterfly that she is.
My next prompt, what do you think are my green flags?
I would say she's deeply loyal. She believes in love, curious mindset, and she is fearlessly ambitious.
And then last but not least, what kind of friend am I?
Julie is the kind of friend who will always have your back, no matter what.
Damn, that feels nice to hear. So download Hinge and try voice prompts today. Then find someone worth deleting the app for.
Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating sociologists.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to the Dateable Podcast. Hello, welcome to officially, I think it's almost summer. It feels like summer in LA today, at least. It's been June gloom for most of May, and the sun is finally out.
I agree. I got out today and I'm like, damn, it's hot. It's like I am in a sweater and I should not be in a sweater right now.
It does hit you.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, it does hit you all of a sudden. But we've been experiencing opposite weather from the East Coast. It's weird. Like, it's so nice in New York and hot, and it's just so cold and gloomy on the West Coast. So we are desperate for some sun. My skin is desperate for some sunlight right now.
You know where it's always hot?
Is it
the metaverse?
No, I was like, is it?
I don't know.
Is the metaverse always hot?
I feel like if you're going to be in a virtual world, you might as well make it the ideal paradise,
75
right?
degrees, sunny every day. Yes, that's how it should be. Well, the metaverse is super fascinating because it's not just entertainment anymore. You can do so much in the metaverse. In fact, laws are being built around the metaverse, making certain things legalized, such as getting married. Did you know you could have a legalized marriage in the metaverse that carries out into the real world too?
You know, I feel like jury is still out about what is going to happen with the metaverse and if this is going to actually become a new normal. I feel like for a period, I was like, okay, I think it's going to happen. And now I'm feeling a little less confident on it. But who knows? Who knows? We shall see. But when we heard that one of our past guests, Sheel, got married in the metaverse, We were like, we need to get him back on Dateable.
Yeah. How does that work?
Need to get him back.
What does that mean? What does his wife think of the whole thing? You'll hear that whole conversation with Sheel and his now wife, Amruta. And it's very interesting how it all played out because they got married in the metaverse that was sponsored by Taco Bell. Like, I can't say that with a straight face. I was trying to explain to a friend last night what their wedding was, and I was like, there was a Taco Bell fountain. And she's like, hold up, wait, metaverse?
But it's not real.
And Taco Bell fountain, and it was an Indian wedding, like of everything. Yes, I can't, even after this conversation, I can't fully grasp what the experience was like, but it just shows that there are so many different ways of you showing commitment these days.
And you do you. You find the relationship that works for you. And if that involves the metaverse, then we are here for it. We are all for it. Would you ever think when we started this podcast we'd be having this episode? Because I didn't.
Oh, hell no. I didn't even know what the metaverse was. Like, I don't think VR
it didn't
existed.
exist. It didn't exist. Yeah.
We didn't know what that was 7 years ago. We thought it was like, we thought dating apps were the new, futuristic way of dating. Oh, you met him online? Wow. How does that work?
Yeah.
And
now it's like so out.
in 10 years, people are going to say, I'm in a polyamorous relationship with someone on Earth and then someone in the metaverse. They're going to have like multiple relationships in different realms. I can see that, right?
Yeah.
And then at night, you're like in the virtual world during the day.
Oh my God.
And then you just blur all those lines. It's going to get real confusing.
It's going to get weird. That's for sure. It's going to get weird.
But we embrace weird and all of
do.
it. I like this discussion for the fact that people are finding creative ways to celebrate their love.
Yes.
And the metaverse is a great place to gather all of your friends and family globally without travel restrictions and all the logistics, financial restrictions. So I definitely see arguments for doing anything in the metaverse for those reasons. And I do think that more and more people will be using the metaverse for these like ceremonies and rituals.
I don't mean to say this to put down anyone's wedding by any means, but there was a period, I don't know if you went through this, UA, that I probably had like 8 weddings in a span of 3 months.
Whoa, that's a lot.
3 of them that I was in, it was a lot. And I had just gone through a breakup. So it was a lot.
Yeah, that's
it was
not fun.
a lot. All of them were wonderful in their own way. And to the people, I'm sure they were very unique. But as someone that was going to them, I'm like, I feel like I've heard the same thing over and over again. And it was a little cookie cutter at times. And I feel bad. I don't want to say that in a bad way because I did genuinely enjoy going to everyone's. But I appreciate when people step out of the norm a little and just do things that are different.
Yeah, I can see that. I personally love weddings. I love going to weddings. I think it's so much fun. It's like an evening of entertainment. You never know who's getting drunk first and making an ass out of themselves. And I always like to watch that thing go down. But I do reflect back to some of these weddings. They kind of blur together. I'm like, oh, was that
Definitely
the one that was at a farm, or is that the one that was in a farmhouse? I can't, I blur. And then I know people spend months picking out their dress, their utensils, their decor, the flower arrangements, their food. And I can guarantee you most of that's forgotten by your guests.
No idea.
Yeah, right? You're like, what was their centerpiece? I have no idea.
No idea.
And those centerpieces are like hundreds of dollars, just for one. But I do remember vows. I think vows are still very sacred and special. So that is one way to differentiate. But you don't need a wedding to witness vows.
So I went to Golden Gate Park in San Francisco in the Botanical Gardens. And there is, oh my God, the Redwood Forest. I don't know if you've ever been there before. It's a place where people get married. And I've seen this 2 times now. I think it's so cool. Like, how cool is it to do something that's in nature, a little against the grain, more casual? I don't know. I'm on board with doing something like that someday.
That's kind of fun. And then probably just a smaller gathering. You don't need 500 of your closest friends and a catering company for all of that. That is really, it's whatever's that feels most authentic to you. That's what ultimately matters.
I was going to say the same. You do you. If you want the big traditional wedding, by all means. I feel like I might someday get vetoed by that anyways. My opinions on having something smaller, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, really? Does he want a big one? He wants a big wedding?
More traditional. Definitely more traditional. Not necessarily bigger, but more traditional. I could go like very off the grid on it and do something that's less involved and standard. But I also recognize the value of tradition, especially, you know, I see why people want that. So again, you got to do what's good for you. And if getting married on the metaverse is it, then that also works.
Yeah, you do that. Whatever universe that may exist in 10 years, go for it. Go do whatever makes your heart sing. I do hate that sometimes. I've been to a few weddings where my friend getting married said, this is actually not for me. This is for, I don't know, my family really expected this. This is for his family really wanted this. And that's so unfortunate when it's your big day, but it's not what you actually wanted.
I always think it's unfortunate when you have a bunch of people you don't know. Like your, I don't know, like extended family or parents, friends, or whoever it might be, and you spend the entire time meeting new people. I'm like, that is not what I want on my wedding day.
Yeah. Welcome to my wedding. What's your name? Who are you?
Yeah, I've seen friends interact that way with people, like have them show up, and they're like even to like bridal showers and stuff, and it's like introducing themselves for the first time.
Chinese weddings are like that. Chinese weddings are purely for your parents and their colleagues and their friends, and they're usually around 500 people. It's at a big banquet, but the benefit of it all is that the people getting married collect cash, so you make money off of your wedding. And it's fabulous. You have someone, you designate someone as the cash collector, and as you're toasting, going around to the tables, you don't care what the fuck their names are. You just like collect the cash and then you toast them. It's so great. It's like a business venture.
Can I be the cash collector at your wedding someday?
Yeah, be the cash collector. I'll have 2 tables of people and there won't be much cash to be collected. But how wonderful, because in Western culture, you're hemorrhaging money for weddings, you know, right? But when in China, you fucking make money. You're like, yes, let's buy that house.
The whole thing is so weird to me.
So
like,
weird.
we could probably do a whole episode on this. I do want to point out, though, this is a little like adjacent, but Sheel, we had him on in, I looked it up, 2017 is when we did an episode with him. I remember him coming to your house. How do we get in touch with Sheel? Like, I can't even remember how we met him. Was it just through mutual friends?
I can't remember.
Do you remember?
Either. Maybe it was mutual friends.
Somehow he came into our orbit. We had him on the podcast, and the whole episode was basically about how he was living this like large lifestyle, that he was always on the go, always traveling, had this like social media persona that he, you know, was doing all the things except for being ready to be in a relationship, even though that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
So we kind of debunked like the difference of what he was putting out there versus what he really wanted. And it's been really fun to see him grow over the years, because we've actually had him on multiple episodes, whether it be a check-in or a contribution to, we had him on like the dating in the lockdown episode we did. He's just always been someone that we go to, and it's been really fun to like follow his journey and see how it's led to a metaverse wedding.
He's grown so much. We're so proud of him. He's a grown up right before our eyes, but he really lived this, I guess you could call like a celebrity vortex kind of thing in San Francisco. He's a VC. He's a well-known VC, worked for a well-known fund, and people knew who he was. And so people were very much drawn to him. He's very charismatic. And like you said, Julie, he lived this grand lifestyle, traveling all the time. But it's fascinating that when people look up to him, and definitely people had crushes on him, wanted to be around him. You think you want to date someone like that, but then when it comes to actually being in a relationship, you're like, no, that's like the opposite. I need someone available. I need someone who is giving me the attention and not spreading all this energy around. And I think sometimes in dating, we forget that. We like are attracted to certain qualities in dating that would not make for a suitable partner in a relationship.
Totally. And it's just funny, like, what we want to put out there all the time. Like, we have this is inspired by an episode we did a couple seasons ago. We had a community member, Drew, come on to talk about the comparison game and like how he got out of his own way of comparing himself to his friends. And he talked about what he called his wins folder. So it could be dating wins, it could just be general life, anything that he could also be like, hey, I'm doing a lot of really cool stuff too. Because I think this is really good to reflect on. We've been putting it up in our Facebook group, like, what are your wins, big or small? And one that caught my eye the other day is we had a community member, Julia, I'll give her a shout out. She said, I finally took out that I liked hiking in my profile and just said I was a homebody.
Oh, yes. Snaps all around. Yes.
That made me laugh because how many times have we put out this persona version of ourselves that's, you know, did this hike once or ran a half marathon once, we're now a runner. You know, it's like the aspirational version of ourselves, which isn't really who we are day to day, nor who we want to attract.
And it just doesn't feel good when you're living up to someone else's expectations. Why? This is your life that you're living. I remember I was dating this guy and I really liked him. And during a date, he's like, you know, I really have future plans of moving back to Denver, where he's from. And he didn't even ask me. And I was like, yeah, me too. I don't know where it came from. I have no aspirations of moving back to Denver. I don't ever want to live in Colorado, I don't think, or move back to Colorado. But I was like, yeah, me too. And he's like, you do? Like, really? Are you sure? And he could even sense that I was not being authentic in that moment. And it's just shit like that happens in dating. You're like, yeah, me too. No, not me. It's not me.
It's wild, but I was so glad we were able to follow him. We also got a bit more raw in this episode too of the very real struggles that couples face when one person's ready and the other isn't. So I won't go in too much further, but I think this episode really has something for everyone. And as our editor told us, this was one of his favorites. It just made him laugh. It gave him so much joy. So I always love getting his take when he listens to that because I'm sure others will feel the same way.
Oh, and now that if there's ever an episode where he doesn't give feedback, and it'll be like, oh, he hates that episode. We failed him. I mean,
there are some that he doesn't. I think it's just the extreme ones that he loves, that he shares. And this was one of them. He just thought it was a very fun episode, was the quote.
Okay. All right, Stefan. I'm glad that we can impress you in this episode.
Okay, well, without further ado, we'll move on to announcements before we get into it. We're going to say it one more time because we say it every week. Exit Interview. That's our other great podcast. If you're not up to speed, I want to give a shout out actually to one of our moderators, Jason, the OG, the one that inspired the Exit Interview. I had the pleasure of meeting him for coffee the other day. He is one of our moderators and hosts in the community, so it was really nice seeing him. I think we realized we hadn't met in person for a year, so it's been a while.
Wow.
Yeah, and it just reminded me of where this whole thing came from in the first place. So if you haven't listened yet, we basically have a bunch of daters that are struggling in their dating life, and we talk to their exes, their past dates, their situationships, whoever that past flame is. Maybe it's even their friends that can shed some light into what is going down. And we've heard really great feedback of this, of how not only is it interesting to hear us dissect someone else's love life, but people also say they learn a lot about how to apply this to their own love lives. So if you haven't listened yet, go to Exit Interview. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can get your podcasts.
It's so good. It's binge worthy.
Definitely binge worthy. So at DATEABLE Podcast is our Instagram. You can also find us on all other social media. TikTok. You got to find us on TikTok. We're trying to grow our TikTok. Slowly but surely, we will grow our TikTok. Okay. Well, before we get into it, let's hear a message from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by Via. We all know there are things that can help set the mood in the bedroom, but did you know a little THC could also do that? Yes, Via has developed a unique blend of pleasure-enhancing cannabinoids, libido-strengthening herbs, and a low dose of THC all into one mind-blowing gummy called High Love. This gummy, wow, it will awaken your senses, increase blood flow, and intensify any sexual experience. I've been pleasantly surprised by the High Love gummies because it is just the right amount of THC for me to have a good time without feeling sleepy. And hey, if THC is not your thing, Via also offers a wide array of other gummies without it. And everything legally ships in 50 states with discreet packaging directly to your door. So if you're over 21, you can get 15% off and a free pack of award-winning Dreams THC plus CBN sleep gummies with our exclusive code DATEABLE at viahemp.com. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Let the gummies work their magic. Head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off and one free sample of their Sleepy Dream gummies. That's viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp.
As you know, I recently left my corporate job and I've been in total recovery mode, all about self-care. One of my new routines is the nighttime shower before bed. There's just something about washing away the day and that reflection that's been super helpful for me. I've been using one of our partners, Osea's Mega Moisture Duo. This combo body oil and body lotion are so freaking incredible. It literally feels like I'm at a spa. I realized that the secret is seaweed and other skin level ingredients that are normally reserved for face products. And that's why I was so excited when Osea became one of our partners. And, we're so grateful for partners like this because one, they keep the show going, but they're also super good for all of our listeners and for our own well-being. So if you want to have that nighttime bliss like I am doing, you can get 10% off your first order site-wide with code DATEABLE at oseamalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. So head to oseamalibu.com and use the code DATEABLE for 10% off. Let us know which products you end up going with, share them in social. Super excited to see what you end up choosing.
This episode is made possible by Armoire. Armoire makes getting dressed easy. With a clothing rental membership from Armoire, build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and recommended just for you. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your dynamic, personalized closet. The styles show up at your door in as little as 2 days. Then when you're ready for new clothes, just swap them out. Listen, I live in Southern California. There is absolutely no need for puffer coats or any sort of those winter jackets. But when I travel anywhere else in the world in these cold months, I'm often burdened with the task of getting winter clothes. And now with Armoire, I can just rent my winter wardrobe. It's brilliant. Right now, our listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/dateable. That is armoire.style, spelled ARMOIRE.style/DATEABLE to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today.
This episode is made possible by Badlands Pets. As you all know, Mojo, my precious baby, is the reason why I found love in the first place. He made me feel love again. So I would do anything to ensure his health and longevity. And actress Katherine Heigl and I have that in common. She's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to improve any dog's health, and that's their food. So fortunately, she found that just by adding a few special superfoods to her dog's food, she saw huge transformations in their health. So she's made a 20-minute video explaining step by step how anyone can do the same thing to see incredible changes in their dog's health. I've definitely re-looked at what I'm feeding Mojo and making sure that, hey, he only has one life to live, and I want to make sure it's the best damn life. So if you want to keep your dog healthy and happy, go to badlandsfood.com/dateable and watch Catherine's video right now. Again, that's badlandsfood.com/DATEABLE. Living with ADHD can be a challenge, and dating with ADHD is definitely a challenge, we've heard many of you say. But finding the right care and proper tools needed to succeed can be life-changing. Done is an online ADHD care platform that can get you all the resources you need to help manage your ADHD. Online visits, refills, and a 24/7 care team made for you. In just 1 minute, Done's online assessment can help kickstart your ADHD treatment journey. With experienced clinicians, worry-fill refills, and online visits, you can start getting personalized care as soon as today or tomorrow. So contact an expert team that can help you around the clock and get a personalized treatment plan just for you. Here's how you do it. Take a free 1-minute assessment and book an appointment with a licensed ADHD clinician as soon as the next day. Get continuous care, one-click refills, insurance coverage, and 24/7 care team support with Done for just $79 a month, and pharmacy copays as low as $0. Visit get.donefirst.com/podcast to learn more. That's get.donefirst.com/podcast to learn more. Done. Turn ADHD into your strength.
Okay, let's get into it about a metaverse wedding.
We've been doing this podcast for 8 years now. And I think we've looked at every different configuration of how people express their commitment to each other, except for the one we're talking about today, which is a legalized marriage in the metaverse. I feel like I'm in the future, even just saying that out loud. Well, what does a marriage in the metaverse look like? We're going to dig right into that, but we're so glad to have a repeat offender on our show. Just kidding. But someone who's been on our show for several episodes, Sheel, he is back. Fan favorite. People loved you from the first to the third. Sheel is now 41 years old. When we first met him, he was 15. So you can see how long
I've aged a lot. Yeah.
He lives in SF, originally from Pittsburgh. He is married legally in the metaverse. Just want to say that one more time.
It's true.
He's been on season 4, episode 6, Perceptions and Misconceptions. Season 10, episode 7, 6 Feet Apart. Dating on Lockdown. And then a bonus check-in episode. But this episode specifically, you brought someone with you, and it's your lovely wife, Amruta. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So wonderful to have you on our show, too. She is 37 years old, lives in SF, originally from Cleveland and Fairbanks, Alaska. Wow, that's just two very different places. And also married in the metaverse, according to the law. So before we get into how this wedding worked out in the metaverse, how did you two meet?
We were set up by a friend, actually, somebody that I previously worked with who's a really good friend of Amruta. They also worked together. And it was at the beginning of the pandemic. As you guys know, I was dating with these video dates pretty actively. And then I got an email from, her name's Alka, and I responded immediately saying I was interested in Amruta. The funny part of it is it was actually the third time that she had tried to set us up. So
Oh, wow.
Amruta said no twice before
Oh,
saying
shit.
yes.
3 times the charm.
Well, yeah, I think maybe you would say second, but we had met. So this good friend of mine was also my roommate for many years, and we had a party that Sheel had come to in 2017. Probably 2019, Alka first asked if I wanted to be set up with him. I said no. It really took the pandemic. Much as you've been on this journey with Sheel for many years, in some ways, I've had these touch points as well, and took the pandemic to really sitting at home alone for a month was just what I needed.
So what ultimately drew you to him then, that you started off not feeling that way?
Well, so when Alka set us up, Sheel was actually traveling. So he was on a long RV trip. And
Oh no, it's back to my first episode of Dateable. Is he traveling too much?
Yeah. So he was traveling. And when we were first set up, our first couple of interactions were, by phone. And so our first, what might be considered our first real date was a phone call call that lasted something like 5 hours, something like that. Like we started talking at like 9 p.m. and we're talking to like 2 a.m., sending each other photos. Sheel jokes that I'm like very into coincidences and I'm just like totally sold on that. So everything of like, my dad's also a chemical engineer or whatever, like really got me. And then we had our first real date. So this was like June 2020. And so our first in-person date was in Sheel's backyard. We kept social distance. He cooked for me and made sangria and we had a fire pit and he was so interesting. And much like the phone call and then that date and from there, I just felt like I could talk to him forever and I never wanted to stop hanging out with him. And now I never have to.
In this universe or the metaverse.
Yeah,
It's true, it's
exactly.
And then Sheel, what about you? Because you were clearly like down earlier. What was your path here?
I think, at that point, I was open to a lot of things. As an extrovert, I was taking the pandemic particularly rough and was just like craving human interaction. I had met her at this party, as she mentioned. I thought she was cute and smart and funny and just wanted to know her better. So when Alka sent that email, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm in. And then we had those early phone dates and then met in person finally.
And when was the moment that you two felt like, yeah, let's do this for life? Let's make this commitment.
Well, I think it was different for each of us. So, it was like, I guess another feature of pandemic dating was that things don't happen the way that they might happen under normal circumstances. So within a few months of us like officially getting together, I had put all my stuff in storage with the idea that I'd be traveling, but like effectively moved into Sheel's house with him. And then we were traveling a lot together, spending tons of time together. So by that summer, it sort of felt like we kind of need to like either do it or not do it. And my perspective was like, we should do it. And Sheel was, I think, more uncertain. So that actually led to us breaking up.
Oh.
We felt like we had to go like one way or another. And so we broke up. I moved out, moved into my own apartment. And then we kind of reconnected at some point, question of whether we were going to try to make it work. But Sheel was like still seeming sort of not fully solid to me. And I felt like he needed to like kind of figure out what he wanted. So at one point I told him, I don't think we should talk anymore. Don't contact me unless you decide that you're sure you want a life partner. Because I think at some point he maybe wasn't sure. He has friends who've like chosen not to do that. And like he does like traveling and his independence and all of that. So, you're sure you want that. You're sure you want it to be me. And you're willing to do the work. And I told all of my friends, it's like 100% over. I'm never going to speak to him again. And then like about a month later, he came back to me and like was texting me. And I was like, do you remember the conditions that you agreed to?
How many years in at this point are we talking? Like, I love timelines, so.
Well, it depends on if you listen to her or me.
No. We started officially dating. I'll give you the month breakdown, not years. Okay. So we started officially dating like the beginning of September 2020.
Okay.
We broke up August 2021.
Okay.
And we got back together at the end of January 2022.
Oh, okay. A few months had passed.
And then by August 2022, we were engaged. So.
And moved fast after that.
Yeah.
Sheel, what was holding you back that first time around?
Oh, man.
You're like, I didn't think I'd have a therapy session on here. Are we talking about the metaverse, right?
Yeah, I thought this was a fun conversation. What are we getting into? What's happening here? I think we have this like classic anxious avoidant situation. I'm the avoidant one. And I think that led to some challenges between us.
Yeah. I will say to that I think that was like, from my perspective, that was sort of exacerbated by this like lack of like a real commitment where it did feel like, I think there's this big difference between you have some sort of difference between you two, which is natural, and your first reaction being, maybe there's a reason we shouldn't be together, versus your first reaction being like, okay, well, we know we're going to be together, so we have to figure this out. And so when we kind of got back together after Sheel like had kind of decided in his mind he was fully committed, the nature of our relationship was like completely different.
Right.
This story is so familiar. I feel like we hear this time and time again. So.
Yep.
Totally.
What was it for you, Sheel, during that break that made you realize, yeah, let's do this?
There's this popular thing that like you should never spend time with your ex. Once you've broken up, definitely don't call them.
Yeah, I murder them.
Yeah, totally, right?
Mentally, yeah.
So
gotta clarify that part.
Had
please.
that been the case, we wouldn't be married in the metaverse or otherwise today. Spending that time together while we were apart was actually really helpful. Don't take every dating advice that you hear on the show.
Yeah.
If you're gonna violate the rules, know that sometimes it works out.
I mean, that's our whole motto is we don't have rules. So you're not offending anyone here.
Okay, good.
So Amruta, were you always like very marriage focused? Like, was this something you always wanted, or where did this stem from?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think I like the idea of certainty. So,
I can relate. Yes.
Yeah. So I think in relationships, I have been very unlikely to get into relationships. I haven't been in very many relationships. And I think for like the years before Sheel and I got together, I was sort of like dating as a hobby with like no particular outcome in mind. But when I am in a relationship, I think like relatively quickly I get to a point that's like, we could make this work. It's a very high bar, and then it just sort of sustains versus there being some higher bar beyond that to say, like, I want a serious commitment. I mean, I was single for a long time, and like my mom would certainly say I was not acting like someone who wanted to get married. But, once I thought that Sheel was like a great match for me, I didn't see what else, what other questions there could be.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Should we get to the fun part of getting engaged? Let's do this. Let's talk about the engagement, the proposal, and all that, and then we'll get to the metaverse part. How did this engagement happen?
Well, Sheel is very proud of it.
Not surprised.
Yeah, he'll tell you, a lot of people are saying this is the best engagement story they've ever heard. So, after we got back together, we kind of were thinking, okay, like maybe 6 months or something, and then we'll get engaged. And then at some point over the summer, he had started orienting me around end of the year. And so, like, knowing Sheel, I expected that to be like a New Year's Eve proposal, like December 31st. And so I was very unsuspecting when it happened in August. And we were in Mexico at this like really cool Airbnb outside of the city that is in the shape of a snake. It's by this like really interesting architect, and it's like a cool place. And so we were there for his brother's birthday, and he told me that his brother wanted to do a photo shoot with all of us wearing white, which seemed reasonable to me because it's this like really cool space that's like very Instagrammable, like makes sense to have a photo shoot there. So, I was ready for this birthday photo shoot. And then he told me, well, the photographer is here early. So since we're ready, he said he can take some photos of just us before we, take photos with the group.
Sneaky.
Yeah, that also seemed totally reasonable to me. So, we're taking photos, like these very romantic photos all around the property. And at one point, Sheel was like, doesn't this feel like an engagement photo shoot? And I was like, yeah, it totally does. Like, so funny. And then we got to one area, and the photographer had me turn around, and then Sheel was there, and he had a ring pop in a wrapper.
Oh.
And he said, I was at the market yesterday, and I found this ring pop. And then he opened the wrapper, and inside he had a ring box, like 3D printed to look like a ring pop. And inside were 2 rings because we were both wearing rings. And he proposed, and then all of our friends came out,
wow.
and we
Wow.
celebrated with them. And then we went back to Mexico City and checked into an Airbnb there. And we walked to the backyard, and a bunch of our friends, including some of my closest friends, had flown in and were there to celebrate with us. And we celebrated with them. And then we went to dinner, and we walked into the private room, and my mom and sister were there.
Oh, wow.
So it was a whole series of surprises. I have to admit that Sheel deserves to brag a little bit about it.
That's a lot of coordination. Wow. And you had no idea. All these people kept it from you.
I had no idea. Yeah. We called my mom to tell her right after we got engaged. And she was supposed to be at a conference. And she was like, I can't talk right now. I'm at this conference.
She's like, I'm here.
Yeah. And I was like, she doesn't even care. But actually she was at the airport,
Oh my God.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a great engagement story. Yes, you have bragging rights for a very long time. So that happened in August of last year. And when did you two decide to do this wedding in the metaverse first?
We've been talking about this wedding in the metaverse, but we haven't been talking about another part of it, which is a wedding in this Taco Bell metaverse. So there's a lot to unpack here.
A lot.
Okay, so we got engaged in August, and then a couple weeks later, we're driving up to Burning Man, and on the way, a bunch of people had messaged me being like, hey, Taco Bell is having this contest where you can get married in this Taco Bell metaverse. And I thought, hey, it might be fun to apply for this contest. They just asked us to submit a 2-minute video. So we're driving up. It's something to do in the car ride. Let's just make this 2-minute video. So we scripted it. Mostly she scripted it, to be totally honest. And then we went to a Taco Bell and recorded it. And we didn't think that much of it. In fact, we recorded it twice and submitted the second take. We were at Burning Man, and then later we were like, well, we don't have to submit it, but we can submit it because if we get it, first of all, we're not going to win. And second of all, if we win, we're not going to do it. Then what happened is, fast forward a month, and Amruta is getting DM'd on Instagram from @Taco Bell.
Oh my God.
Being like, hey, check your email. Did it go to spam?
Oh my God.
Not the kind of DM I would expect to get, but yeah, from Taco.
Yeah. The messages went to spam, and then they said, okay, well, we've chosen you. We want you guys to have this Taco Bell Metaverse wedding. And we said, oh, okay, hold on. I don't know if we want a Taco Bell Metaverse wedding. Let's think about this a little bit. So I definitely wanted it more than she did.
Okay.
But I was like, yeah, it would be fun. Why not? Something different. They were like, okay, how about we just get on a Zoom call with you? We can see if it's a good fit. So we got on the Zoom with them, and they're like, hey, this is going to be your wedding. It's not just whatever we want to do. We're going to do stuff that you want. And then, and this was the most important piece, they said, you're going to be part of the Taco Bell family. And
what does that mean?
who knows? Nobody knows.
I have so many questions about this.
Sheel, I feel like you maybe left out the bit at the beginning. People were sending you this thing of
oh yeah,
hey, there's this contest because he's a known super fan of Taco Bell.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
okay, that's
it
important.
was
yes.
Yeah. So we had recently gotten engaged, and then people saw this Taco Bell is having this contest, and they immediately thought Sheel. So they sent it to him. And, I think no one was seeing this and sending it to me. You would be perfect for this.
Yeah.
So Sheel had some convincing to do. He was convinced by you'll be part of the Taco Bell family.
That wasn't your selling point.
Yeah, no. I knew he was really excited about it. And so I wanted to do it because he wanted to do it. And I thought, yeah, it'll be fun. Being married to Sheel is basically a lot of going along with things and seeing what happens. And very often I'm tentative about them at first, but then they end up being really unique and interesting experiences, which was also true here.
So I have a question. I don't know how much you know about the background of Taco Bell getting involved in the metaverse. And then for Sheel's I do, for weddings also. Because it's just I don't even think of Taco Bell when it comes to weddings. How did they even have this idea? Is this a thing?
Yeah, so Taco Bell and weddings go along very well.
Oh,
Okay.
I was not
You
aware
tell.
of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Taco Bell has actually presided over, I think it was like 700 weddings. They actually have a chapel in Las Vegas where you can like on the screen when you're ordering the Taco Bell, like you can order a wedding and like there's a chapel
Wow.
upstairs.
Wow.
So, weddings have been a big part of Taco Bell for a while. The metaverse was something different for them. I think they saw it as something new and unique they could try out. And then, they had this contest. I have to say, we probably would not have done just like another Taco Bell wedding when they've done 700 of them. I think the appeal for us was something unique and different.
Yeah.
And this contest, like the idea of winning a contest for a wedding was kind of cool.
I mean, also, I think this whole part about the metaverse, like I could hear some of our audience being like, wow, this is freaking awesome. You're the first couple to be officially married at the metaverse. Then other people being like, this is my worst nightmare. Let me hear from you two, like as tech enthusiasts, how did you view the metaverse?
Yeah, I think we were entering it as sort of like spectators turned participants or something. Like it's not like we were metaverse natives, like always dreamt of getting married this way. But it was more like, oh, like this is cool. Let's see what they make of this. And what we found in the end, it was sort of, there were IRL and virtual components to it.
Okay.
So on the day that this happened, the wedding took place in Decentraland was the platform that they used.
Nice.
We had like a full production crew set up in Sheel's office, which is on the first floor of our house. We were sitting next to each other in two computers. And so when we said our vows to each other, we faced each other IRL, but then our avatars were doing the same in the metaverse. And our family and friends had access to like this private live stream that showed our faces in addition to like what was happening in Decentraland. It felt like a lot more people could be involved in it than could have been for an IRL wedding. So we had family from India, we had friends from all over the world, et cetera, join us there. And it was also like more participatory for them. So, they had their own avatar. And like, as we were reciting our vows, their avatars like running across the like room or whatever, like they were kind of having their own experience with it. So that was really fun. But then we were actually together and it was actually like a moment for us in real life. And then the next day, we had an in-person reception at the Taco Bell in Pacifica. I think it was like a good marriage of the two, of like virtual and IRL versus being like just one or the other.
Also, for anyone not local, the Taco Bell in Pacifica is actually pretty
nice.
Freaking amazing. It's on the
beautiful.
beach. It's on the water. It's really breathtaking. Okay, I'm going to hold for 1 minute because we're going to do a quick break. So this is your legal marriage. Are you also getting married in, I know there was an IRL component, but is there going to be any other follow-up weddings or was this your wedding?
No, there will be a big follow-up wedding and there will actually be multiple follow-up weddings. So we had always planned to get married in a destination wedding in Mexico.
Okay.
So we're getting married at a hacienda like 2 hours south of Mexico City. But then our parents were not happy with the number of invites they were given for this wedding. So we're also having a reception in Cleveland, which is where I'm from. And that's essentially like our parents' wedding, basically. Where it's like also a wedding, but for all of their friends.
And when you were doing the metaverse wedding, did you have any friends in the room with you?
We did have some friends in the room with us. People who gave speeches were in the room with us. And then we also had a group of folks who were upstairs at our place. And then they came down and celebrated with us. We actually went out for karaoke right afterwards.
Well, what's nice about this is that anyone in the world can come. You kind of alluded to this. Did you have people from India coming to the wedding on the metaverse? Like how far globally did we span here?
Yeah, we did have people all over the world, including, like a lot of family in India who were able to partake, which was pretty cool.
How involved were you in the wedding planning process?
Very involved. Like we had a say over a lot of stuff. So they designed this whole thing in Decentraland for us. I rode on an elephant
Okay.
in Decentraland,
Yeah.
which was a really big deal, apparently. I had no idea, but there was no concept of riding.
Oh.
So they had to build the concept of riding to allow me to ride an elephant.
Oh, wow.
You know, it was cool that it was not only a wedding in the metaverse, it was not only a Taco Bell wedding in the metaverse, but it was a Indian Taco Bell wedding in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Were there any other traditions like for Indian weddings that you brought over to the metaverse?
They did it all.
Wow.
So when we first spoke to them about they wanted us to make it our own and they wanted to customize it for us, and all the customization we wanted was basically to make it an Indian wedding. We're both Indian, and that's when we were thinking about our wedding, we're not thinking about a white dress and an altar. We're thinking about a sari in a what we call a mandap.
Mm-hmm.
So they built the mandap. So you traditionally walk around a fire. They had a fire made of fire hot sauce packets.
Wow.
And they had clothes for the avatars. Our guests also could pick from different clothing options that were all Indian inspired. We had an Indian first dance, all sorts of things.
What were your family and friends' reactions to all this? I'm sure there's clearly the friends were rooting you on in the first place, but then you probably have family that's what the fuck is happening?
100%. Yeah. I think most people were like, what the hell is going why are you doing this? Yeah, I think a lot of people, that was the reaction of a lot of people, family, friends, etc. But I think the people who know us were like, oh, of course you're doing something crazy. We didn't necessarily think it would be this, but we knew it would be non-traditional. So
And you being the first legal wedding in the metaverse, does that mean that other people have gotten married in the metaverse and just didn't have someone ordained or something?
We have seen examples of people getting married in the metaverse. We were told by Taco Bell that this is the first legal wedding in the metaverse. And the way that they were able to do it is apparently during the pandemic, a bunch of states passed laws or regulations allowing for Zoom weddings.
Mm.
And most states repealed those laws, except for the state of Utah. So we were able to do it by getting a Utah marriage license and having the officiant be physically present in Utah at the time.
Wow.
And that was not
Wow.
Cal Penn.
No, so he was the MC, and then there is a separate officiant who is in Utah.
Wow.
So your actual reception is at Taco Bell in Pacifica. Is there a reception happening in the metaverse at the same time?
no, the metaverse portion was about an hour,
Okay.
inclusive of everything, including the reception. And that was on Friday night. And then on Saturday night, we had a IRL reception at the Pacifica Taco Bell.
Got it.
That was many hours and went into the night.
So what did the reception of the metaverse look like? You kind of walk through the wedding a bit of, well, actually maybe even just walking through the wedding in more detail. We heard about the coming in on the elephant, but what else happened in the actual wedding and reception? I want all the details basically.
Yeah. You walk into this pretty beautiful virtual world. It had a bunch of fun virtual things, like the steps rose up, and then the two of us were up there at the mandap, the traditional Indian thing that you get married under. We had a relatively short ceremony that had vows, and people were able to see us, and there was actually a slideshow of us also in the room sort of at the same time.
Oh.
And then after the ceremony, we moved on to the reception, which was next door. And when I say we moved on, again, our avatars are moving on. Inside this reception, there were a bunch of fun things. There was a nacho cheese fountain that you could actually jump into, and people got stuck inside of.
Oh my God.
There was a Baja Blast bar where you could get a virtual Baja Blast. There was actually something kind of cool, which is you could scan a QR code, and that day for anybody in the Taco Bell app, they could eat our wedding menu, which was fully vegetarian. So that was an option in the Taco Bell app, which was kind of fun.
Wow.
That sounds really elaborate, but you don't even have to leave your chair or go to the bathroom.
It actually was really cool. It sounds kind of I have to admit, it sounds kind of lame. but actually being a part of it, it was like very emotional and fun.
Yeah.
Everybody remarked to us that like they had a really good time with it. And a lot of people sent us pictures of themselves with the screen. And it was fun. I think it was fun. And it was like short. You could be at home in your pajamas. Some people dressed up though. So overall, it was a really fun wedding.
Were people like dancing and stuff at their house?
They were, yeah. We also had hot sauce packet dancers who had choreographed a dance to a song that we picked, which was kind of fun.
Wow. Well, this is certainly unique. I think that's definitely, I can see why people loved taking photos and being part of this because the novelty alone, right?
How many people showed up?
In total, I think it was in the thousands.
What?
Wow.
There were some technical limitations in terms of how many people could actually be part of the experience. So there were fewer avatars that were actually participating. There were like others that it was sort of a view-only experience.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I feel a little better that our invitations got lost in the mail then.
Thousands. Wow. Well, you would never be able to, I mean, it would be very hard to pull that off in real life.
Yeah.
So that's one thing with the metaverse.
Definitely.
You can definitely scale your wedding.
Yeah. What else do you think was special? Like now that you've had this experience and you're looking back on it, I know, Sheel, you might have been more excited and Amruta more skeptical at the beginning. How do you feel today?
It was great. It was a lot of fun. I mean, there were the parts of it that were just funny. So my sister's reaction when she heard we were going to do this was like, this is classic you guys in that you are taking a joke one step too far. And so even though Sheel is more of the novelty seeker than I am, but I like love a good bit. And this was like definitely there's a good opportunity for that. So during the actual experience, we're kind of like bantering with Cal Penn the whole time. And like that was really fun. But then there was also part of it that was actually touching and meaningful. So we both wrote our own vows and we recited them to each other. Then, you know, we went through the kind of more traditional vows of like, do you take each other, you know, kiss the bride, all of that. And that like I surprisingly felt very real. Like that is, I think, when we realized like, oh, like, we're married now. So yeah, it was unique and interesting and fun to be part of and also like a sweet moment.
I'm still stuck on the Cal Penn part. I can't believe that Cal Penn emceed your wedding. Did you request him?
We did, yeah.
Oh, and they made it happen.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, Cal Penn, I think he's like kind of special for us as like, he was one of the first really like popular Indian American actors, and we always really liked him, so it was great to have him.
And then Sheel, like clearly you were gung-ho on this from the beginning, but like what would you say, like especially to someone maybe that's considering doing something a little more unique? Like what would you say as a benefit looking back on the whole thing?
I think, you know, the fact that it is something unique is cool. I think people really appreciated it. And I think it's more fun to do something unique.
Yeah.
Why do just the same thing that everyone else does?
Was there anything surprising about the experience that you would take for years and years to come?
One thing that was surprising about it is what a production it was. So, you know, even before the actual event, we had like a full day long photo and video shoot one day where we again had this huge team come in and, you know, they set up like basically like a craft services table in our house and like all these things. And it was like, there were like the multiple producers and the multiple camera people and all of that. And then there was like the whole lead up to the event and the day of. And it was like, at some point we realized like, oh, we're part of this like much larger campaign. Like we're sort of the talent. That I think we were not somehow expecting. I mean, I guess it should have been expected, but took us by surprise a bit, like how involved it was. It was pretty interesting, actually, to get some insight into how that world works because I hadn't experienced it before.
I know at the beginning of this, you made a joke like maybe we'll be the first and last in the metaverse. Like, do you... Where did both of you see weddings in the metaverse going? And maybe the metaverse as a whole. It's a loaded question.
Look, I think there were some things about it that were really great. I think it was unique. It was a unique experience for everyone. That was cool. There were also definitely some technical hiccups along the way that were challenging. One of the advantages was, I mentioned it being unique, but also the fact that it was virtual and so many people from around the world could attend was really cool. But I don't know that I'm not necessarily like, I haven't been back in the metaverse since then. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I would say, the metaverse can mean many things. So, initially people would assume that it means some sort of virtual reality experience, which it doesn't necessarily.
Yeah.
The concept of a metaverse wedding can mean many things. So I don't know if this exact kind of experience will happen very often, but I do think that having these kind of virtual elements to celebrations definitely can be something that continues and that has a lot of benefits.
Definitely. And clearly you two are both taken, but if you were to recommend dating in the metaverse, yay or nay?
Nay.
Why?
I mean, I would say like date in the metaverse if you're a metaverse person who's spending a lot of time in there anyway. That's not us. There are definitely those people. So for those people, it makes sense. If you're like not a metaverse person, then phone calls are great. Or, ideally you just meet in person, like old fashioned days.
I think we can support virtual dating since that's how, we started.
Yeah, definitely.
But whether you need an avatar to do that, maybe for some people that would help. And if so, I think that's great.
I can see people proposing in the metaverse. You can do so much more grand gestures.
Yeah.
It's true.
Than have
Sheel,
an IRL
Yeah,
component.
Sheel, think about how much easier all of the planning would have been.
Oh, yeah.
I know,
You don't
it's
have to
true.
fly anybody in.
I know.
Yeah.
True. It's very
And
true.
in this virtual room are your great grandparents. I brought
Exactly.
them back.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
I just love this conversation because it does show like how you can put your own spin on weddings and
Totally.
tradition and all of that. I mean, I don't know if our audience fully knows you, Sheel, but I feel like I think of that video that you did with Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande that you were like
Oh my
hugging
gosh.
yourself. And what was that video called?
Yeah, it was like
Do
a
you remember
coda
that?
Stuck
video.
with you.
Stuck with you. Like you are just that person that will find this type of stuff. Like if for
Yeah.
someone that might not be that person, like how would you recommend people kind of like stepping out of their comfort zone a little?
It's hard. I think like you're kind of born with it. And like, I think you can be a yes person, you can be a no person. I'm lucky that Amruta has at least been okay with my saying yes to most things. But
So you could be a yes person, a no person, or an okay, fine person.
yeah.
Whatever.
Well, one thing that's funny is like, so I'm a venture capitalist. So like my job is literally like saying yes to crazy ideas. And then that some of them are going to be super amazing, even though some of them are probably going to really suck. And Amrita's job is a lawyer. So she just says no to like all the crazy ideas.
So you two balance each other out so well.
She
Yeah.
keeps you in check.
I think she's come around. I think most of these things have really worked out pretty well for us.
You don't even know the ways you've come around.
Oh, that's such a lawyer
Well,
way.
we know the fact that he is there, engaged, married in the metaverse.
Yeah,
He has
for
come
sure, for
around.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I mean, I think my biggest takeaway from all of this is we say you design the love life you want, but it's also like you design that through the end. Like this doesn't stop once you found your person. This can go into any facet of your relationship. I think also like the whole virtualness. Like I also met my partner during COVID and I feel like the virtualness was nice, and it's kind of sad that we're losing that now. And I don't think it needs to be so either or. Like I think we looked at it like, oh, because now we're in the real world again, we don't need to do virtual. But I loved what you were all saying of this allowed us to have more people there. And we're still going to do the wedding. We're still going to do it the way that, more traditional way of doing it. So I would say like think about like what's possible and it doesn't need to be confined to one thing or the other.
Totally.
And then the last takeaway I have is I feel like finding your person and getting on the same page, like it's two people coming from different backgrounds, and the pace discrepancy can be very real of like when one person's ready, the other person isn't. And I appreciate you telling your story because I think a lot of people go through this, but it's not talked about as much because everyone wants to just portray like, oh, you know, we fell in love and everything worked out perfectly. But I think it's good that you said it because it also shows just how you pave your own path and you find what ultimately works for the two of you.
Yes, you guys are getting the unedited version of our story page.
Yeah.
Good.
It's the best page.
That's what we want to see. Kind of a benefit of a metaverse wedding, I was just thinking about this, is that the focus is truly on you two, the couple.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in an IRL wedding as a guest, you're constantly thinking about like, are my shoes going to be comfortable enough? What am I going to wear? What's the food going to be like? Am I going to be cold? But in the metaverse, all those senses are kind of taken away and you just solely focus on the two people who are getting married. So I think that's quite lovely. I love this concept of marrying the old with the new. You've got the traditions, but then you've got this very futuristic way of delivering these traditions, which is in the metaverse. And I think we're going to get more towards that. As we head into a hybrid workplace, we're going to have more hybrid ceremonies.
Totally.
And that helps us scale the people that we can kind of offer this to, but also it creates these memories that are very unique for our generation. So I'm actually kind of excited where we're headed there. I remember going to this wedding several years ago, happened to be an Indian wedding, but their vows really spoke to me because the bride said, I'm so excited to create new traditions with you. And it really stuck with me because I think when you come together in a marriage or any sort of commitment, you have the opportunity to create these new traditions together. You can still take along some of the old traditions that you have, but now you have these really unique ones together. So maybe your 10-year marriage vow renewal can be in the metaverse, you know? So I'm seeing it all.
If it's still around by
There's
then.
so many opportunities.
Or in some realm we don't even know about yet.
Some realm.
True.
Yes. But at the end of the day, all this is to show that when you are in love and you want to create a life with someone, that life can be this universe and another universe and all the universes. And that's the most beautiful part of the story. Thank you for sharing with us. I'm so glad we got the final unedited version instead of us trying to figure out like, what could that even look like? My burning question now is, are you going to get Taco Bell for life? Does that mean part of the Taco Bell family?
Yeah, great question. We actually recorded a podcast. The only other podcast we've been on together was a podcast with the Taco Bell CEO.
Okay.
And
we feel so honored.
Yeah. And we talked about it with him, and he said that there is no Taco Bell Black Card, but if there ever is one, we will get one.
That was such a serious way of answering that question.
Yeah.
And then my final question is, you two were featured in People magazine.
Oh, yes.
What was that like? Like, was that surreal to just be like, oh my God, we're in People magazine about the metaverse wedding?
You know, it's old hat for Sheel with all of his like random cameos in different places. But no, I mean, it's fun to see ourselves in all these different publications. I think my one thought was we have our more traditional destination wedding coming up at the end of September. And that's the date I had in my mind of like, okay, I'm going to like really look good then. And then I realized like, oh, but this one is the one that was like photographed and placed in like, yeah, maybe I should have been thinking of that in a different way. But no, it was fun.
Just shows you that when you do something unique, you could end up in People magazine.
Yeah.
How wonderful is it that when you Google Sheel and Amruta, your metaverse wedding comes up first? Your Taco Bell wedding is the first one that populates. You'll be known forever as the metaverse Taco Bell couple. It's great.
It is interesting that so many different random publications like reached out to us for comment, and it was all these like Indian publications that we'd never heard of reached out to us. The MIT Technology Review covered it. All
Wow.
Wow.
Quite the case study.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for sharing your love journey with us. We always enjoy hearing these stories. And for all of our listeners, if this story resonated with you, you have more questions about the metaverse and metaverse dating, weddings, proposals, funerals, whatever. There's so many things you can do in the metaverse. Feel free to give us a rating and review in Apple Podcasts, and you can ask your questions there. Just give us 5 stars, and then maybe in the body of your review, whatever thoughts you have about the metaverse, we love to hear from you. And if you want to go the old-fashioned route, you can always email us hello@dateablepodcast.com. And on that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Stay dateable. The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Media Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram @DateablePodcast and visit dateablepodcast.com for access to all the episodes and our premium programs. Also, make sure to subscribe today if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform so you are the first to get all the latest episodes. And most importantly, stay dateable.